Welcome. My name is Finfante, or often introduced on here as Finfante. Today's 9/12/2025. You're watching this on the main Finfante channel. This video is not really rehearsed or scripted. None of my content really is. But if you're used to my content and my videos, I do want to say, even though I haven't uploaded in a long time, this is the first video I've recorded and uploaded in a long time. This one will be unlike any that you're used to. This is not for the point of comedy. I'm not going to be cracking a lot of jokes during this. I'm not going to be trying to keep it super lighthearted. It's not going to be heavily edited. I don't even know entirely what I'm going to say, but I felt like I wanted to say something. So here I am. By now, you don't need me to tell you the tragic event that unfolded 2 days ago on September 10th, 2025, where Charlie Kirk was fatally shot during one of his events around 12:23 p.m. Mountain Time. I felt compelled to record this today to offer my own feelings and insight into this event and how I believe it's affected me and permanently will going forwards. Again, this video is not what you would be accustomed to with my sort of content. I'm not wearing this suit to be funny. Some of you clicking on this may think that's the case. This is probably the most raw and serious video that I've ever recorded for this channel because I've never felt more personally affected by something that happened to someone I did not personally know. And I know many of you feel the same. And I apologize for my appearance. I've been sick. I have some sort of cold or stomach bug or whatever. And I've had a lot of health issues lately. Part of why I've disappeared for a while from videos. I have been doing more live streams, but haven't recorded a video in a while, in part because of the health issues and other circumstances in my life that have made it difficult to be able to get to this. But I feel compelled to be here today, to talk today to all of you, because this has affected me unlike any event I can recall regarding somebody that I did not know personally. I have been mourning this so much more than I thought I would or would think I would. And I know many of you feel the same. I know many of you are on the same page. And by many, I mean millions of people are affected by what happened. So I hope I'm able to articulate my thoughts well. I threw this together quickly. Dressing up isn't exactly my strong suit. It's not something I do very often. Again, I haven't recorded in a long time, and I've been trying to collect my thoughts. So I apologize for being disheveled and for my throat. If I sound winded, again, I've had diagnosis of GERD and chronic laryngitis, and well, that's not what the video is about. And I'm rambling because I don't know exactly what to say. All I can tell you is how I feel and what this means to me going forwards. 2 days ago, I was sitting on my couch. I had just made food. I was getting ready to eat, and I went to YouTube, pulled it up on my TV, and I typed in Charlie Kirk. I had not watched any Charlie Kirk videos in a little bit. I typed in Charlie Kirk, and right after I did, I received a text message, or not right after I did, it was while I was scrolling videos. While I was scrolling videos, I received a text message, and I look at it, and it's from my dad, and to quote, and typically I wouldn't apologize for vulgar language on my channel, but this is a different tone, but this is what the text said. They fucking killed Charlie Kirk. And when I read that, immediately I thought it was figurative. That was my first impulse, is that it must be figurative. You know, what do you mean they killed Charlie Kirk? To me, that was my first instinct, is that no, it didn't even initially cross my mind. And it sounds silly now, but initially it just sounded, it wasn't something I could accept right away. And I looked it up, and sure enough, it was true. I don't often get into political matters on my channel. This, to me, is not even about politics. This is not about politics. I could go ahead and I could rant forever about the evils that I have seen, the horrible things I have seen people saying about this man after his death. And trust me, there's a plethora of it. I have plenty of screenshots, plenty of saved tweets and blue sky posts and everything, posts on X and all. Horrible things being said about this man, but they are overshadowed dramatically by the amazing testimonies of people coming forwards and talking about how much Charlie personally impacted them and changed their lives. So while I could go on and rant forever about those evil and heinous and disgusting people and the things they've said about this man, I'm not trying to dedicate today's video to that. I wanted to just talk about how this is affecting me. And I'm sorry if I'm not making total sense. First video I've recorded in a while, and I apologize for rambling, apologize for repeating myself, but this is as authentic as I can be here. Again, I'm not one to get super political. My content is usually about trying to make people feel as good as possible. I want people to laugh. I want people to smile, because I believe when you're laughing and smiling, it makes you happy. It's the reason I started content in the first place. I believe happiness is so integral to, well, a happy and prosperous life. And I think humor is one of the best ways to inspire that. It's why I started this content, because humor saved my life. I've said it many times. People that created that sort of content when I was living in absolute hell, it was an escape from reality for me to be able to watch those videos. And that's what I've always wanted to focus on. It's why I haven't focused on politics, not because I don't care or have my own political opinions and things, but for me, I just wanted to inspire happiness and joy in everyone that I could, regardless of anything, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of sex or race or any of the boxes that you can tick off. I just wanted to make people laugh and happy, because that saved my life. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I've always wanted to do. And that's why I shied away from politics, more so entertainment. But I can recognize, I believe when somebody is very authentic in what they're doing and what they believe in, and I don't think there was anybody more authentic than Charlie Kirk. I don't think anybody believed in what they were doing more than Charlie Kirk. At 18 years old, he founded Turning Point USA with a simple mission to reach everyone, but especially the youth of America, which I think was extremely important, which I think is a demographic that really needed and still needs guidance. And he gave them that. He gave them a platform to talk openly, to speak to one another, to converse ideas, to have some sort of structure to life in a generation that has been extremely lost and misled. He wanted to offer them the sort of guidance and security and faith in life and in America that he had. And I, regardless of your personal opinions on his beliefs, I believe his intentions were unbelievably pure in that. I really do. And all he was doing was having open discussions with people, and they shot him for it. Charlie, not long before his murder, was asked what he would like to be remembered before, after he's gone. I'm going to be honest, I'm a grown man. I'm 25 years old at the time of recording this. I'll be 26, December 14th of this year, of 2025. Sorry. And I've shed a lot of tears over this. I've been very surprised. I've been crying over this. I've never met the guy. Never got to attend a rally, regrettably. I'm sure I will one day. The Turning Point USA rally. I'm sure I'll go now. whether Charlie's, well, physically he may not be there, but I do believe he'll be there in spirit. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. He was asked not long before his death what he wants to be remembered for. This is a guy that had accomplished so much in his short life, founded Turning Point USA when he was 18 years old. By the time he's in his early to mid-20s, he's already being interviewed across several major news networks. He's already making a change. He's reaching out to young people on college campuses. One of the furthest lost groups, the most lost demographic ever, okay? I know this. I went to school in a generation that was extremely lost and confused. I couldn't get along with them. I tried my hand at political things, obviously never like Charlie did, never to that degree, but I never saw eye to eye with my peers, and I felt like there was no hope. I remember feeling like there was no hope, especially when I was 16 years old, and things that my peers were lost, that they were so far gone, so brainwashed, so lost. They had no values or traditions to stand by, and they had no good role models, no good leaders. Charlie saw that problem and he fixed it. He was actually fixing it. He was making a difference. If you go through his videos, you can see the tide shift. It's a really cool thing where he's going to these colleges in the beginning. He's getting so much protest, mostly hate and protest. And then there's this shift. There's this shift where he's met with so much love. Instead of overwhelming hate, which of course still existed, as we can see, the love was really growing. The faith was really growing because he was speaking to people authentically. He cared. You could tell that he cared. You could tell he meant what he was saying. I'm not saying I agree with every single thing he ever said, but I really admire his authenticity. I really admired that, and I really admired his passion and his bravery. Sorry for getting sidetracked so many times. I've kind of been all over the place. But he was asked before passing what he wants to be remembered for, and he said his courage for his faith. That was the most important thing to him. His courage for his faith. They didn't ask this to a local priest. They didn't ask this to a Sunday school teacher. Now, it'd be a fine answer if they did. They didn't ask this to anybody. They asked this to somebody who had such a laundry list of achievements. I mean, he achieved more things in his short and young life than the average person would in 10,000 lifetimes. No exaggeration. The amount of things he could have said, astronomical, incredibly bright guy, unbelievably smart guy, very charming, very talented in all aspects, an amazing speaker, an amazing organizer, an amazing leader. He had so many things he could have answered with, but he said his courage for his faith. Now, I won't pretend that I have ever been a highly religious person. I've never described myself as religious or faithful. I've said many times in my own videos that I've identified as agnostic, which means, I neither believed nor disbelieved the existence of God. I never really chose a religion, and I didn't really understand it. To be completely honest, I even criticized it in many of my own videos. I don't think ever harshly or hatefully. I've kind of criticized a lot of different people. It's part of the humor of my videos, but I can recall specifically making fun of Christians to some degree and the Bible and going to church and what I thought was good-spirited criticism and fun, but it really also did stem from a lot of ignorance as well. And, well, that's... Maybe it took me too long to get here, but that is really the core of why I'm recording this today. I wanted to talk about my recent journey and differences in my life with faith. First of all, this Sunday, I'll be going to church for the first time in my adult life. I have vague memories of being in church a couple times, and I was very, very, very little. I could barely even remember it. Don't even really know exactly what. I remember something about turning grape juice into blood or vice versa. It was a long time ago. And I've been in church for events, but going to church, I'll be doing that for the first time in my life this Sunday. And I was driven to do that after this event with Charlie. I was already highly considering it for a long time, being inspired by people like and especially Charlie, because I noticed something. I noticed that the more I paid attention to people who I shared a lot of common ideas and values with, people that are very intelligent, very well-spoken, I share so much in common with, tend to be very aligned with, they almost all shared one thing in common: their Christian faith. And at some point, despite my many criticisms of Christianity, which again, I'll completely admit and acknowledge I had, I kind of always took it as, a bunch of people they read a book. The way I would have described it up until not very long ago is, okay, so you think that some magic guy lived a long time ago, had, some magic Jesus or whatever, some magic guy lived a long time ago because a book told you. That was really how ignorant my view on it kind of was. But I started to realize that so many people that I respected highly, who had great advice, who I shared so many values with, that I watched all the time, commonly had this value in common, their Christian faith. And I thought, man, there just seems to be something there when all of these well-educated, highly intelligent, well-spoken, morally good people, they almost always share this value. I noticed something else, that the people around me, the most miserable people I know, their misery and their faith seemed to be directly connected. The more miserable they got, the lower their faith went. The higher their disdain for religion and for God, for Christianity, for all those things. It seemed like it was all... My cat's jiggling my doorknob now, trying to break in. This is very professional, right? It seemed like those were connected, directly related to each other. And I also noticed the happiest people I've ever met, they've always seemed to be people they're the ones with the crosses in their house. They're the ones that praise Jesus. They're the ones that pray before eating. The happiest people I've ever met, they seem to hold these core values. And I picked up on that. I've noticed it all my life. For whatever reason, I was always compelled to push that to the back of my mind, because it was just too fantastical, too ridiculous to believe any of this. And I am not sitting here saying that I have suddenly overnight become a devout Christian and I know everything about Christianity. I don't really know much at all. I don't. I'm an idiot with this, okay? I've barely ever touched or opened a Bible. Another thing I forgot to mention, so I'm adding this in after the fact, just really quick. I've always been the I hate reading guy. Hate books, always thought that was stupid. Another thing I was always very ignorant to, but as of lately started to open up more to the concept. During all of this opening up to God and everything else, I've noticed it's kind of in sync with a lot of other things. Going on walks in the park while listening to music, working out outside, reading, a lot of things that I never really did that suddenly now are very meaningful to me have earned a new meaning. As my admiration for God has grown, my profound respect and admiration for these simplicities has too. I've noticed that, something I've always said my whole life is that I had a hard time appreciating the little things. People always told me, try to appreciate the little things more. It's something I could never do. Yet somehow appreciating the little things, that has been as my faith and openness to faith increases, so has my ability to appreciate the little things, which is an incredible thing to hear myself say out loud, actually, because I have never, ever been able to appreciate the little things. I've always focused on the negative, never the positive. And as somebody who's now reading, I actually did look up books that are recommended by Charlie Kirk. I'm also going to buy some of his books. I intend to read all of his books, actually. But for starters, I went with what was locally available at my local Barnes & Noble. And today I started reading, oh my God, Brand New World. I bought Brand New World and 1984. Those are both books that I saw that were recommended on lists people put together by books recommended by Charlie. And I started reading those today. So, Charlie, you also got me. You also got the I hate books and have pretty much never read a full chapter book in my life guy to effectively start reading books. I mean, I was kind of starting to, but I had started with manga. I was reading Berserk manga, not exactly chapter books, but I did want to get into it, and this has been the perfect time to start. Very enlightening, and I really respect the education that Charlie put himself through. I'd like to hold myself to a similar standard, or at least learn from it. So I appreciate the suggestion, Charlie. Thank you. This was another extra thought that I decided to add in after my video because I did not prepare any list of things. I should have thought to make a bullet points of things I wanted to say, but I instead just turned on the camera and started talking. So it's the best I got. We'll throw this in there somewhere, I guess. All right, back to the video. Sorry. I've never really even attended church. I don't know much about this, but what I do know is that not only did I notice that, but with my own life, with things that have happened, I have suddenly felt connection to God in an indescribable way. I have sometimes touched on this in some of my streams and videos talking to you guys, and I'm not going to get super into this today. I don't think I'll ever really fully divulge all of this for my own personal reasons. But sorry, I was diagnosed with Tourette's a long time ago. And when I think about things that I sometimes, and anyway, I've been emotional, obviously. I have, I have, I want to be clear, everything I'm about to say is not to garner some sort of sympathy. I don't want a bunch of woe is me. I'm trying to offer my own perspective on things. I have been faced with more tragedies and traumatic events than I care to list all at one time. Would get to be a pretty long video. I have seen evil. I have seen so many evil things in my life. So many unfortunate things in my life. Everyone and anyone that I have ever loved or trusted has at some point or another betrayed that trust and hurt me greatly. And for a long time, I have been very angry. And that anger still exists within me. But I've noticed that the more I have been open to accepting God, the more that anger has been replaced with understanding and acceptance. I don't care to get into details completely, But I had one person left up until relatively recently that I trusted wholeheartedly, who I really do believe cared for me deeply, who held me first before themselves. And I don't have that anymore. And that was a big part of why I disappeared from content. It was really the reason. I was going to say that my life effectively fell apart. But that's not exactly accurate. It's more like my life was this ship that continuously kept gathering more holes that were flooding it with water. It was sinking. It was just gathering more and more holes, falling apart. Little by little, it was just getting more and more rickety. And with this event, with this individual, and with things that have happened, that's when it just the whole thing imploded. So to say my life fell apart, I feel insinuates that I was sailing relatively smoothly, but it was a gradual, long, very long-winded struggle. And with this, it all completely fell apart. And it had me mentally, physically destroyed. I lost 30 or 40 pounds from kind of unintentionally starving myself. I didn't really know how I would ever trust anyone again, how I would have faith in somebody. But then I started to realize things. I have been met with so many tragedies, more than I can count, so many unfortunate circumstances, more than I can count. I've had so many times where I felt abandoned and alone. But something always existed in me to keep going. Something was there. And I was always driven by the desire to help other people, to make other people's lives better in the ways that I could, which for me was through laughter most of the time. I felt driven by that even when most of what I experienced was heinous, atrocious evil. But rather than mimicking that, I felt driven and called upon to defy that, to defy all odds. And by all odds, I should not be here. I've thought about this too. I remember talking about this. I always feel like it's so statistically interesting. I feel like it's a miracle that people survive as often as they do. What I mean is, there are so many opportunities for things to go wrong in any given day. And when I think about my life, I mean, I can't count how many opportunities there were for something horrible to happen to me. Now, horrible things did, but what I mean is so many opportunities for my life to end where I don't know how I made it, but I did. And it seemed to me there was always this unforeseen force that seemed to ensure it. I didn't understand what that was. For the longest time, I thought you could call it karma, some sort of universal consciousness. You could call it, maybe we're at a computer simulation, it's programming. All of those things really do refer to the same concept as God. And with this most recent development, when I felt so abandoned, something just spoke to me. I could feel it in my soul, almost like when you hear a song in your head. You know, you're not actually hearing it physically in your ears, but it's real. It's not getting out of your mind. Or when you feel butterflies in your stomach, when you meet somebody that you really like. or when your stomach drops when you're on a roller coaster. These are all sensations that you feel within you. Somewhere in that realm of things, I felt this warmth and this embrace by something that is so hard to put into words, but I felt that, and I felt called upon. Somehow it clicked for me after this, that I felt like I was taught lessons. I felt like things happened for a particular reason, to make me a certain way, to teach me to be a certain way, to inspire me in a certain way. I felt like what happened was intentional, like there was conscious thought behind it. I suddenly felt like all of these things that I always thought were unfair and happened to me, and I was so angry, were really trials, intentional trials to turn me into who I needed to be. Before all of this, not long ago, I was certain that if I were on my own, I would I'll just keep to myself, probably never have kids, do whatever I want to do for fun, all that kind of stuff. Suddenly with this, it just became so clear to me. It washed over me like a wave. This beauty of the idea of family. Being able to redeem a lot of experiences I've had by going out and creating a strong family. And I no longer now, when I think about the future, when I fantasize about something great, I don't picture necessarily my absolute freedom and ability to do whatever I want and just have fun all the time. That'd still be great, right? But now all of a sudden I have this image in my mind of sitting down at the table with my wife and kids for Thanksgiving. I have this image in my mind. I don't have a wife. I don't know who that would be, but I have this image in my mind. And suddenly it's the most beautiful thing I can think of. I went from somebody who thought, no, I probably don't want kids, just want everybody away from me, keep to myself, so angry over everything that happened to me, to instead accepting it, realizing they were trials, realizing how much I had my own failures, how much I contributed. Just because people had done unfair things to me doesn't mean I didn't have problems and that I didn't share any blame. Well, I'm painfully aware of the mistakes I made. With everything in my life, I'm painfully aware, especially with this most recent event I'm talking about. Doesn't mean that what happened in the end was completely justified. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that what happened to me or what someone else did is justified. What it means is that's between them and God. My decisions are between me and God. And since recognizing this, since realizing that in all my moments of thinking I didn't have someone to rely on that faith, I realized that I did. And I do. No matter what. I feel that. I just know it. It's something you just know. Like when someone's looking at you from behind, you can feel it. I can feel it. And it was people like Charlie Kirk, especially Charlie Kirk, who opened me up to that sort of thinking. He opened me up to that. I'm sorry for how lengthy this is getting. You don't have to watch the whole thing, obviously. This was just my own personal testimony. I don't know if testimony is really the right word, but my own personal whatever to Charlie. Thank you, Charlie, for being such a stellar example of an American, of a patriot, and of a follower and worshiper of God. For somebody who preached what he believed in, you genuinely affected me. I'll be going to church this Sunday because of you. The first thing that was proven to me in this world was that evil is real. I do believe that was the first thing that was proven to me beyond any reasonable doubt. I haven't really come out and said this before. And I don't just mean figurative evil, although that's very real. I don't really care if anyone's going to say that I'm crazy. But something occurred to me. How was I so ignorant to criticize people that believe in Jesus, this magic guy from the past, all these things, a superhero? How could you believe that? Yet spent so much of my life frustrated with those who couldn't open themselves up to the idea or concept of the evil that I saw, that I've experienced face to face. I wish I could tell you I'm joking. I've never really come out and said this explicitly publicly like this. Beyond any reasonable doubt, very early on in life, I was met with what could only be described as demons. I know how it sounds. I know how it sounds. But if you were going to walk right now and you saw a 20-foot giant walk past you, you saw it. You know. Not only that, but imagine if other people walked that trail and ended up seeing the same exact thing you did. I had such experiences in my life. I don't even care to get into details completely, but I know that when evil and negativity is cast out there, it's like throwing chum in the water. If you put the bait out there, you attract sharks. And I think that negative, evil actions and emotion attracts that sort of negative energy and spirits, or whatever you want to call it. I don't claim to know all the ins and outs. I'm not saying that when I say I've experienced this, that it means that everything you've ever heard about it is true or real. What I am saying is I've experienced that one of the first things I accepted is the existence of evil, but yet I spent my whole life, or most of it, rejecting the notion of holiness, laughing at it. Where did that come from? You would think somebody who experienced the things that I did would be open-minded to everything. Now, I did always entertain that it was possible, but I leaned against it. I don't lean against it anymore. I lean heavily towards it. And I look forward to what I'll learn this Sunday. And thank you, Charlie. I can confidently say that you changed my life. I would not be doing this if not for you. I may very well turn to a godly life, have a wife and children because of you. And I want to thank you sincerely for that. I really do. You offered me guidance when I was lost, just like millions of others. And the coward who shot you, if they were hoping to snuff you out, silence your message, they are sorely mistaken. The bullet did not silence your message. As a matter of fact, it amplified it for everyone to hear. I don't think it's a coincidence that when I was already so close to a turning point in my life as I have been, so conscious of my mistakes, so conscious of what I can do and what I can become now, so conscious of how I've stood my own way, I don't think it's a mistake that at the same time, this event happened with Charlie. I don't think it's a mistake that at the same time as this, while I was gearing up and feeling so ready for this big change, that God called Charlie back. And am I being so bold to say that I believe that Charlie Kirk's murder is directly related to me and my events in my life and where I'm at? Yes. I am being that bold. I'll also be bold enough to say that I think it relates to every single one of us. I think that we are all akin to atoms or cells, if you want to say, in a body. We all work together. We're all part of the same sort of living ecosystem. I do think this is all part of God's creation and plan. I don't think that this happened at this time by mistake. I think it directly relates to me, just like it directly relates to everyone. And I think the reason so many of us are feeling so much mourning and such a powerful impact by somebody we'd never met in person is because we lost such a vital part of the organism we all work to keep functioning and thriving. I really do. But now that that individual may not be here with us in this realm, in this dimensional plane, I don't think it means his essence or his spirit is gone. I think if you're feeling it, it's because I've heard other people say similar things. I think it means you're within God's grasp. I think it means you're within that faith, is why you're feeling it. I think just like when you feel pain when you have an injury so that you address it, I think the mourning and the pain that we feel from this is really something beyond our understanding calling upon us to do something, to at the very least better ourselves and open ourselves up to faith. I don't know exactly what to expect in church on Sunday. As of right now, I'm not pretending that I've suddenly become the most devout Christian ever. I'm simply saying I'm open to it. And I feel like my journey with this is just beginning. And I'm so thankful. I am so thankful for Charlie and people like him. But especially, of course, right now, Charlie, thank you. I know there was something else I wanted to say, but it's slipping my mind. I've really done my best to be as composed as I can be. I think I rambled for a long time. Hope it wasn't too insufferable. I hope it wasn't. I really hope it wasn't. I can just personally testify that since opening myself up to God, it has filled me with such a warmth that I can't describe exactly unless you experience it. I never understood what people meant before when they say that devoting your life to Jesus or giving, however you want to put it, opening yourself up to Jesus or to God is one of the greatest choices you can make, one of those freeing choices. Never understood it. What does that really mean? I do understand now. Once you feel it, you just feel it. You really do. And I feel a new purpose. I feel driven by it. I know that I've always wanted to do moral good. Where did that come from? I think I know where it came from now. And that was what I wanted to say. I know this has already gotten long. I'm going to try to wrap it up with a short story. I've had several moments in my life for this sort of divine interference to present itself in such a remarkable way. Let me give you a really mild example. The night that Charlie Kirk, the night of the day when Charlie Kirk was shot, I chose not to go live. I didn't want to do a live stream, very upset and angry. I had seen the videos, It's awful. I had seen things people were saying about him that were unsavory, to say the least. I was angry and I was upset. I didn't want to go live like that. So I went out to a bar. The last thing I had said to somebody before leaving was that if somebody says something negative about Charlie to me, I'm going to punch you in the face. That was my... But anyway, I drove there and I sat down. Usually I like to keep to myself. I have this little weirdo book that I carry around with me and write some thoughts in, some sketches and stuff because I'm a crazy person. Anyway, it's not really helping my case with the whole demon talk earlier. Shortly before this, I was at a Falling in Reverse concert. I was in the mosh pit like all night, especially when Slaughter Prevail was out there. I tend to be pretty good in the mosh pit at throwing people over the place, but I was thinking I would be a lot more effective if I would train my legs more. You know, I feel like I should really take that seriously because for a long time I couldn't train my legs due to health issues, still have problems, but I need to get my legs stronger, you know, more on par with the rest of my body. Just a random thought. It was just a thought that I had. This thought was in my head as I walked into the bar. And immediately upon sitting down, this guy turns next to me and asks me if I train or whatever, starts talking about powerlifting and strongman and stuff. I hadn't said anything. And immediately just, without missing a beat, just goes into talking about leg training. How a lot of guys don't train their legs and here's why you need to train your legs. It's so important. And he was gloating, you know, he's older than me. He starts getting into, you know, all the fights he's been in and all these things and why strong legs give you so much power, especially when if you're throwing somebody and all the and just it directly related to exactly what was on my mind. It was just strange, right? Just strange that it just happened the way it did. After that, I go and sit down. Nobody's mentioned anything about Charlie Kirk. It's like 1 a.m. and I pull up my phone. I realize I should probably go to Discord, let my audience know why I haven't gone live. So I make a post in my Discord and I tell them, hey, live stream tonight, because I just explained the Charlie situation and didn't want to go live upset and angry. And immediately after posting it, nobody can see my phone. Immediately after posting, I set my phone down. I make eye contact with this kid I call him a kid, but I mean, I'm not that much older than him, I guess. And he walks over to me and tells me it's his 21st birthday. We just made eye contact randomly, and he like cheers his glass, walks over and tells me it's his birthday, tell him happy birthday. I ended up buying him a shot later. Without missing a beat, immediately says to me, I can't believe Charlie Kirk got shot. Right after I posted it. And at first he's like, I'm a centrist, I don't agree with everything Charlie said. He was kind of worried. I could tell he was worried to come out. And then I said, I agree with most of what he said. And then he goes, okay, yeah, I did too. And then he leans in and tells me, he whispers to me because there's girls he's with, I'm a Republican, and he tells me that most of the guys in his college actually are and align with, they all loved Charlie, but they're all scared for the girls to find out. But just the way that happened, right after something's in my mind and it gets said, something's in my mind and it gets said. I've noticed so many events like that in my life, and I know this video has gotten very long, but I'm going to wrap it up with one last story, my last part of this. I hope this video made sense. I don't think I did a great job, but at least it was authentic. Here's a story that I have never shared publicly. I have many other examples I could get into, but here's one I'd like to share with you. I've really always thought about. Really reminds me that there's more to life than we sometimes realize. I used to work at an auction. My job primarily was going to customers' houses and clearing out all of the heavy furniture and things, and they wanted us to take that. A lot of times people would hire us to clear out houses and then they'd, we'd pay them for whatever, I guess, or I honestly don't know. The owner handled that. I was the guy that moved the stuff. And so we were clearing out this house, and this one gentleman that we were clearing out his house, his name was Pat. Not going to give any other personal details than that, but his name is Pat, and he was a jolly old man. I don't think he was actually that old. Later found out, I think he was maybe 50s or 60s, but he was unwell health-wise. And, not in being insulting, but you could tell, obviously, he was suffering from health issues. And The reason he was clearing out his house is because he was moving with his daughter, who I believe was in her 20s. And he had a heart issue. And fixing my hair because I look ridiculous. He had a heart issue, and they had given him vests to wear so that if his heart stopped, it would, electric shock and wake him back up. He was on a list waiting for a heart transplant. And, I remember him looking at me, looking at us and saying, in his words, he goes, I'm not an idiot. I'm already gone. Because he knew that he wasn't a huge priority and would never get the transplant, in his words. I remember him looking at me and telling me, I'm already gone. My cat has some great timing with touching my doorknob at the worst moments. Anyway, we kept clearing out his house. There was a lot of stuff there. There was a lot of tragic events in this guy's life. I found out that his wife had recently passed. I believe his son had also, and a lot of the stuff in the house was his son's belongings. His son was a veteran. I don't know the exact details, but I believe he lost his son also. He lost his wife. He lost his son. There was no one left to take care of him. He was moving with his daughter, and he kept talking about how he felt so terrible. He was going to ruin his daughter's life. These were his words, his feelings. He was going to ruin his daughter's life. She shouldn't have to take care of him. He doesn't want to do this to her. And he was a really jolly old guy, but you could just tell he was sad. He felt like he was going to ruin her life, and he knew his health was only going to get worse, and she was going to have to dedicate everything to taking care of him. So we kept cleaning out his furniture, and then one day, after we'd been doing it for about a week, we're going over, and the owner of the auction, it's me, the owner, and another guy. It was his first day on the job. We're all in the box truck, driving over to Pat's house. And the owner looks at me and says, Pat's a really great guy. Like, I really like him. When we get there today, I'm going to invite him and, to come out and go fishing with me and my dad. Because the owner, his dad was old, but still alive. And actually, anyway, he was going to invite the guy to go out fishing with them, which I thought was really nice. We get there. The owner looks at me and tells me to hop out and go knock on the door, let Pat know we've arrived. So I get out of the car, go up to the front door, and I knock. And when I do, I knock a few times and don't hear anything back. Keep knocking, don't hear anything back. So I tried the knob and it popped open. So door opens a little bit. And I just leaned in a little bit and I said, Pat. Didn't get a response. So I went back to the truck, and then the owner parks it. He hops out. He comes up to the door. We both go and we start pushing the door open. We're calling his name, Pat. He knew we were going to be there. We had scheduled the time. Still not getting a response. The way the house was set up was when you're standing here, there's a room off to the left. You would have to walk here and then go in there. Then the rest of the house goes this way. There was a room here. Pat spent all his time in this little room to the left, was usually where he was laying on the couch. So we walk in and turn to the left and look, and there's Pat on the couch. We call out his name and he's not responding. He won't answer us. Soon realize something's wrong. So the owner starts shaking, goes, call 911. So I pull my phone and call. By this point, I've recognized something that the other guys didn't yet. They asked for the address of the house. I didn't even know the address off the top of my head. I handed the owner. He tells him the address. He's calling out to Pat. He had noticed the blood down the side of his face. I'm sorry. Again, I should have said this is a bit of a disturbing or explicit story. He had noticed the blood down the side of his face. But I was the one that noticed and said to him that the gun was still clenched in his hand. And at this point, the owner had lost all composure, started panicking. I told him to hand the phone to me. He ran outside. The new guy, he ran into the kitchen, stood in the corner. I was the only one that stayed there, and I was on the phone. Hello. The operator asked me what's going on. Of course, I explain it. I go into the room and I look at Pat and I check on him, and I can see the entrance, wound in the side of his head. And I call out his name a few times. There is a point to this story beyond just this being morbid, by the way. Call out his name a few times. Obviously no response. And I confirmed the operator that I told her, I believe I'm looking at a dead man. Both men, understandably had lost their composure. I was the one that kept myself the most composed. Maybe you would even mistakenly think that I wasn't upset, but somehow I just felt and knew that, that right there was not Pat suffering. That was a body, but it wasn't him anymore. I don't mean to sound callous, but somehow that made sense. And that's why I was able to handle it. So anyway, we put the phone down and the cops end up being sent on their way, and we're all standing there. I do notice there's a book on the counter with his daughter's name written on it. He had written her the book. I didn't touch it or open it or anything like that. I wouldn't be disrespectful. It was meant for his daughter. We, the cops eventually get there. They open up the door. They tell us to come out. They take our statements, everything. We actually still ended up going back to that house and having to clean up take a lot of the furniture and everything with the bloodstains on it and all, which you would think, don't the cops take? No, they don't take all that, apparently. But the point of all of this, I got in my car after this had just happened with Pat. I got in my car, and after we were leaving and the cops are taking the body and everything, the owner and the other guy are in the box truck in front of me. That's right. I wasn't in the truck with them on the way there. I was in my own car. I went to shuffle all my music. And I have a lot of songs added to my collections. I mean, I have on my music app, I have thousands and thousands and thousands of songs that are collected. Thousands of songs all on this list. And I clicked shuffle. And the first song that plays, I was really trying not to do this, is I'm Already Gone by A Day to Remember. That was one of the last things that Pat had said to me. I remember planning to sit down with him, try to give him some encouraging words. He was really suffering, going through a lot. I remember him patting his pot-bellied belly when we got one of his cars started. He was so excited to see a car get started that hadn't run in 20 years. Let me clear stuff out. But out of all the songs I could have played, that was the first one it chose. And I don't think it was a coincidence. And that was when I started crying. Not when I saw the body, not when everyone else was crying. That was when I just lost it. Because that's when I knew Pat was there. He may not have been in the room. I don't think he was in the room with that body. But I knew he was there when that happened. And that's one of many experiences I've had that have taught me that there is so much more to the human soul than this life and the bodies we're in. I have plenty more stories like that, by the way. Unfortunately, not all exactly like that, but others. But I think this video's gotten long enough. I wanted to share that with you, not to make you depressed, but as a reminder that there is so much more to us. We are so much greater than what we sometimes realize. I do believe that the world is a beautiful place, despite what you might be seeing. Evil is real. I've always known that for a fact. And now I know so is good. And so is holiness. Because for the first time ever, I feel that just as much, actually more, than I've felt evil when directly confronted with it. And I have Charlie Kirk to thank for sending me down that path. God bless Charlie Kirk. God bless his wife, his beautiful kids. I do believe he was called to heaven for a reason. I know that if I'm feeling this way, countless others are too. I've seen it, I've heard it. Anyway, I think my video's gotten long enough. Today wasn't about getting into all the demons that have been running out of the sewers, all the rats of society, to spew the most hateful nonsense garbage I can towards Charlie. Today was about my own personal story, whatever this was. I hope I did good. I don't really think I did. I just felt like I wanted to say something. And maybe, probably, soon, I'll be coming out with more videos about Charlie, focusing on maybe some other things, but today was about this. I'll be in church on Sunday. I encourage you to do the same. If you did listen to all of this, congratulations for making it this far, and thank you sincerely. Thank you. I hope listening to me rant about my absurd ideas and experiences brings you something, if maybe you're able to relate to this or whatever. I never thought I'd find myself recording a video on this topic exactly. Never thought that. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. God bless you, Charlie. I know you're up in heaven now. God bless your family. Thank you. I believe in God's plan. I have at times in my life felt, I don't know if I'd call it envy, but upset that some people have had it so good. You know, Charlie talks about how blessed he was in his life, how many great things happened. And I think, man, if I hadn't had circumstance after circumstance that limited me, or people that limited me or got in my way, imagine what I could have accomplished. Well, Charlie could have taken it easy. He didn't. He never stopped fighting. And his life was taken away so young, 31. Well, I'm still here. I should be thankful for that. I'm still here. And there's so much I can do. I know that now because of you. Thank you. That's it for now. I'll see you in the next one. Have a fantastic day.